Hello, friends. It's spooky hours. UFC 305 is upon us. I'm going to be giving you all of my picks for the entire card, early prelims up to main event. Just going to hop straight into it. I'll obviously give my thoughts and a little bit of a breakdown with everyone, but starting off with a men's flyweight bout, Stewart Nicoll versus Jesus Aguilar. This one I think is actually a lot spookier than many people realize. I'm going with Stewart Nicoll. He's the favorite here. I think that's actually a sensible pick. But Jesus Aguilar is not as... I almost swore. I'm trying not to swear in the first minute. He's not as bad as many people would think. He does only really have a few threats, a few dangerous tools, but he is decent with those techniques, with those tools, specifically like the guillotine. That's his number one takedown defense, but he does find success with it. He taps dudes with his guillotine. He has gotten smoked by people recently, but it was expected. He went up against Rinya Nakamura, I'm pretty sure. That was expected. That was calm. Does have maybe some low-key power. I do think that Stewart Nicoll is going to be able to survive all of that, and the grappling is not going to be a threat to Stewart Nicoll. Stewart Nicoll is a high-level black belt, a legitimate black belt. We don't have to question who gave him that. It's pretty valid. 8-0 right now, making his debut in the UFC. I didn't see his reach listed, but Jesus Aguilar has one of the smallest, the shortest reaches in the UFC, especially for men. Moving on. Very easy pick there, I feel like, with Stewart Nicoll. Logical pick, but it might be spooky. It might be spooky. Maybe Stewart Nicoll goes in for a takedown, ends up in a guillotine from Jesus Aguilar, and then there's a couple moments of tension. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I think that he should win. I think Stewart Nicoll should win this one. Moving on to Kenan Song versus Ricky Glenn at welterweight. I'm going with Kenan Song. Or Song Kenan. Here's the thing, though. Both dudes are kind of close to each other in terms of they're chinny and people can put them the fuck out. But I think Kenan or Song Kenan is going to be the one to do it to Ricky Glenn. I don't think Ricky Glenn's going to do it to Song Kenan unless he lands first. Unless he comes out, brings the fight to Song Kenan, and comes out first. I think Ricky Glenn's going to get KO'd eventually. I think he's just stiffer and not as sharp on the feet as Kenan Song is. Granted, Kenan was getting the shit beaten out of him by... I forget the dude's name. Peruvian dude. Actually, I really fuck with the guy who beat the shit out of him, too. It got ruled a no contest, but he was getting his ass kicked in that fight. He was getting the shit kicked out of him. Hopefully, he's not just done. Him, I mean, Song Kenan. We're going with Song Kenan here. Very calm. Moving on. Those two dudes are heavy favorites to win their fight. Not heavy, but Kenan Song more so. Moving on to someone that is a giant favorite. One of the biggest, if not, I'm pretty sure the biggest favorite on the card. Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. I'm going with Tom Nolan here. I feel like you have to go with Tom Nolan here. These odds, though, are similar to Tom Nolan versus Nicoll. Like, it's spooky hours, man. If Tom Nolan gets starched, if he gets smoked in this fight, it's over. It's GG's. Like, it's actually just straight up over. Straight up over. It would be impressive, honestly. Alex Reyes, I think, is washed, and he's been KO'd multiple times recently. Somewhat recently, at least. Recently in his fight career. I do think Tom Nolan will be able to get a nice, brutal knockout as long as he doesn't get brutally knocked out. And maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on Tom Nolan, because the Nicoll shit was spooky hours. But, moving on. Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. I'm going with Jack Jenkins. Again, Herbert Burns does have dangerous grappling, especially offensively. He actually is a threat, a legitimate threat. Only for like 5 minutes, though. Only for like a round. His biggest drawback is his cardio, his conditioning. The dude just isn't built for it in some aspect. I have no idea how. But Jack Jenkins is built for it, despite getting injured in his last fight. I think Jack Jenkins is going to come back with a spectacular recovery. Nice little comeback performance for Jack Jenkins. I can see Jack Jenkins winning via TKO. I can see a couple things happening, actually. But maybe Jack Jenkins, a little bit overzealous in the first round, somehow ends up in some kind of submission from Herbert Burns. Then it might be spooky hours. Who knows? I am going with Jack Jenkins. Fairly confident in that one again. This fight, I think, is very interesting. Women's flyweight bout. Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. I'm going with Luana Santos, but I think this fight is pretty close. Luana Santos, I think, actually finds herself in a position that Casey O'Neill was in recent memory. You know, she's lost a lot of hype, lost a lot of stock. She's on a bad skid, Casey O'Neill. But there was a time where people really were fucking with her and actually jacking her heavy. I don't think that's the case anymore. I was actually one of those people, although I never really jacked it that much, but I always thought there was a twinge of hype behind that, but I think Luana Santos has a shit ton of momentum coming into this fight, especially with Casey O'Neal's last loss, that armbar that Ariana Lipski got on her. It's just like, I can see Luana Santos literally hip-tossing her, using some judo, and then finding a sub similar to that on some Ronda Rousey shit. It's spooky hours. Casey O'Neal might be a better striker, a little bit more sharper, better technique, better IQ with striking. I think Luana Santos is not a horrible striker. I think she's a decent striker, and she has some low-key power. But she's a bit more of a slugger, a brawler. She's a bit sloppier on the feet, I think. That might favor Casey O'Neal, but I do have faith in Luana Santos to get this one done. This will be a good test, I think. This is a good test for both chicks to see where they're at right now. That's a good fight. Casey O'Neal has also probably fought better competition, but enough on that. Moving on to a fight that I'm actually really looking forward to. It's probably the first real spooky hours fight on this card. Joshua Culibao versus Ricardo Ramos. Now, gone back and forth on this one. I'm going with Ricardo Ramos, and let me tell you why. Ricardo Ramos actually he's good. Like, his skills are good. He has potential, I think, too, even though he's had a shit ton of fights already. But he's such a tweaker. He is a tweaker. That's the worst thing about him. He's a fucking tweaker, man. There's a possibility that Ricardo Ramos comes out, he's piecing Joshua Culibao the fuck up, goes for a spinning elbow, and some Lerone Murphy shit happens. Joshua Culibao snatches up the bag and gets a rear naked choke or some shit. And Ricardo Ramos can grapple, actually, but that's the only thing that scares me. I think this is actually a good matchup stylistically for Ricardo Ramos, but he is a tweaker. He will throw that out the window. He'll give that up. I'm going to ride out with Ricardo Ramos as a nice little underdog in this one. He's very wild, and I think that can fuck up Joshua Culibao. But he's a tweaker, bro. He could put himself in a bad position, and Joshua Culibao finds a finish. That's entirely possible. That's not even that far in the realm of possibility. Like, it's very spooky, but I am going with Ricardo Ramos to take this one. A little bit of a risk, but fuck it. This is a redemption fight for both of these dudes. Both of these dudes are on skids. Really, what I'm talking about here can be seen in both of their performances versus Lerone Murphy. That's all. I'll leave it at that, actually. Moving on. Junior Tafa versus Valter Walker. This is actually spooky hours, too, and it's coming up right behind it. I've considered, right before I started recording this video, I was switching back and forth, man. The Joshua Culibao and Ricardo Ramos, I was switching back and forth, but I already knew. I was like, I'm going to go with Ricardo. I'm going to take that risk. This one is spooky. I'm still deciding as I speak. I think I'm going to go with Valter Walker. I just said Valter Walker like I'm a kraut. Like I'm a goddamn kraut. Valter Walker, man. Brother of Johnny Walker. This is actually a battle of the brothers. I don't know if Junior Tafa can find the knockout before he gets taken down. We've seen it go that way. We've seen Mohammed Usman. I actually picked Mohammed Usman to beat Junior Tafa by getting the takedowns, by being able to not be knocked the fuck out. I could see that happening again. I really think that could happen again. Valter Walker looked like absolute shit. He looked like dog shit in his fucking debut against Lucas Bresky. A dude who also is not that good. He's not that good. Not absolutely straight horrible, but he's bad. He's bad. Valter Walker did not do himself any favors with that debut, and he came in as like a monster. Like, there was a lot of hype surrounding him. He's huge. He's a huge guy, 6'6", 81.1 inch reach, and a young guy. I do think Valter Walker might be... He has all the skills, like I said last week with Carl Williams. Fucking Carl Williams, man. Carl Williams' ghost might be coming around to haunt us. In fact, I've heard something spooky. Whispers of it on Reddit and Tapology forums about the UFC. It's rumors. These are just rumors. But of the UFC possibly, maybe, on the off chance they do these things, they do talk to managers or fighters about their fighting style, they are talking them out of just straight wrestle fucking people. Which...
That's fucking illegal.
I think that kind of speaks for itself. I don't even really want to get too much into that. I might save that for a video in and of itself. But really, these are just rumors. I don't even want to cope. I don't want that to be too much of a... That's like a seed that can take place in your mind, take root in your mind, and I just don't want to even think about that right now. We're going with Valter Walker. If Valter Walker does what he's supposed to do, he'll win a calm decision. If Valter Walker bugs out, he might get a submission. Who knows? That's not to say that this fight is like, oh, okay, like he just has to take him down and it's a wrap. That's going to be hard. Junior Tafa doesn't really have a ground game at all, but he is a striker. That's the thing. A little bit of an El Clasico matchup there. Either pick is calm to me. I don't think, like, if you pick Junior Tafa, you can't be like, Junior Tafa's just... Or you can say Junior Tafa is going to KO Valter Walker, because if he wins, that's probably how it's going to happen. However, Valter Walker could easily take him down and just hold him over 3 rounds. It's spooky, man. We're just going to have to see. Valter Walker is the pick there, though. Moving on to another welterweight men's bout. Jingliang Li, the leech, versus Carlos Prates, man. The fucking nightmare. This one isn't really spooky hours in the traditional sense that I use it, but it's going to be spooky hours for the leech. I got to go with Carlos Prates here, man. Carlos Prates, I've said, is low-key, like, I'm not going to say he's chinny, but he has a suspect chin. Like, we really don't know how well he can actually take shots. Dudes have finished him before. I had said that first off, like, in his Trevin Giles fight, I want to say. I had him beating Trevin Giles, but it was spooky hours. It was spooky hours. Maybe the leech is able to find the chin of Carlos Prates off rip with a juicy, tremendous hook. Maybe not. Maybe not, though. I think Carlos Prates is coming into this fight with so much momentum. He's looked good. He's looked the part in his recent fights. He passes the eye test. I feel like it's not going to be crazy to say that Carlos Prates gets like a round 2 or round 3 KO TKO just from like a 1-2 or a solid straight down the pipe. Like, I feel like that's probable in this fight, unfortunately. The leech is coming off of a long period of inactivity, and that's due to a brutal injury. Dude fucked up his back insanely. And he was already getting old. That's rough. This would be a tough comeback if it wasn't against Carlos Prates. If it was against anyone else in the UFC, it would still be tough, coming after 2 years of inactivity and recovering from a major spinal injury. But that on top of your comeback fight is Carlos Prates. That's brutal, man. I really feel like it's, as tough as it is, you just can't go with the leech to win this one. Moving on, man. Heavyweight men's back. Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Bigi Boy. I'm going with Bigi Boy again, man. I picked Bigi Boy to smoke Shamil Gaziv. He dog-walked him. Put the leash on him and was like, let's go. Come on. I love Tai Tuivasa. If I actually wanted to say this, no emotional picks on this card. If I was going to have an emotional pick, it would be this one. I'd go with Tai Tuivasa. But no emotional picks on this card. Tai, I can't. I just can't do it with Tai anymore. I fucking can't, man. I fucking can't. The Tybura shit was close, but then Tybura violated him. Like, he hurt Tybura. He was beating his ass. He cut him open. But still, Jairzinho is better on the feet than Marcin Tybura, and a better grappler than Tai, though. Like, that's the spooky part. It's not... It's rough, bro. It's super rough. Tai could win. Tai has the power to put anyone away. So does Jairzinho, to be fair. But Tai is also a little younger. Not more than a little. He's 31 compared to Jairzinho at 36. Which is the same age gap, actually, between Carlos Prates and Li Jingliang. Carlos Prates is 31 and the Leech is 36. I can see Jairzinho winning this fight by decision. I can also see him finishing this fight on the feet. So I have to go with Jairzinho here. I'm backing him again. Jairzinho, he did me right last time. I think he'll do me right again. Moving on. Lightweight men's bout. Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. Dan the Hangman Hooker. I want to pick Dan Hooker. I really do. There's a world where I do pick Dan Hooker, and there's also a world where Dan Hooker violates Mateusz off rip within 45 seconds. Maybe we're in that world. I don't think so, though. I think Mateusz might get dropped. Mateusz is chinny as a motherfucker. Like, it's only a matter of time before someone, like, flatlines Mateusz Gamrot. Will it be this time? Maybe. I'm just going to go with Mateusz Gamrot to just fucking wrestle fuck Dan Hooker. God, it's spooky, though. It's spooky. I can see Mateusz getting knocked out. There will be a time. Even if you're a dude that doesn't get dropped, you just have a brolic chin, but you take massive damage every fight, there's a first time for everything. It's just a matter of time. It is a matter of time. Maybe you'll get out unscathed, but it's a matter of time before someone probably knocks you the fuck out. It sounds like I'm leading up to a Dan Hooker pick here, but I'm staying with Mateusz Gamrot. Moving on. Dan Hooker coming into this fight with a notable size advantage, though. Especially reach. 5-inch reach advantage for Dan Hooker. Will that be the deciding factor here? Maybe. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. Mateusz Gamrot moving on to the co-main event. Kai Kara France versus Steve Erceg. I'm going with Steve Erceg. There is danger coming from Kai Kara France, but it's really only on the feet. I think Steve Erceg is a competent enough striker to deal with Kai Kara France. There might be a speed disadvantage for Steve Erceg. I do think that Steve Erceg will have the power and size, though, to be enough of a threat himself standing up. And if it comes to grappling, I expect Steve Erceg to actually ragdoll Kai Kara France. I think the Pantoja fight should be a tremendous amount of good experience for Steve Erceg. I think he's going to look even better than he has previously, really, against Kai Kara France. I think Steve Erceg is the better fighter here, actually. Maybe not the better striker, but the better fighter. Simple as that. This fight might not even be that exciting. It might be a bit more of a wrestle fucking. Again, we don't know. We don't know. Kai Kara France has a lot more experience than Steve Erceg. But Steve Erceg has good experience. He has some good fights. I'll take that. Now, moving on to the main event. Real spooky hours. Real spooky hours shit. Dricus still knocks du Plessis versus Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. I'm going with Dricus du Plessis to get this one done. Don't exactly know how. I want to say by submission. I don't even know the round. I can't say the round. It's a similar thought process that has been the foundation of multiple picks, especially as of late. If Dricus uses the grappling, and he can actually use the grappling, if he can effectively use it, he should win. He straight up should win. Izzy has stopped notable grapplers in the past, actually legitimately stopped them as well. But, strangely enough, people that have come in to fight Izzy usually always go with a striking, heavy or primarily striking game plan. I think Dricus is going to be willing to just blitz in, use the blitzes, his kind of trademark blitzes, and then go for grappling. I think that there's going to be a difference shown there. There's a very strong chance, I won't say very strong, but there's a possibility that this ends up similar to Sean O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling, and Israel fucking cracks Dricus coming in. Israel's no joke. Israel has gotten older. He's 35 now. Dricus is 30. He's still on the younger side. 35 is not an old man, but it is older. Does have a reach advantage. Is a little bit taller than Dricus, but Dricus is a hefty lad. He's a hefty boy. It's spooky, man. It's real spooky. I think this fight being kind of like a pick'em is pretty fair. Even with dudes like Jared Cannonier or like a Martin Vittori, dudes that grapple a little bit more maybe, they weren't with that. They really weren't with that. They don't do that. I think Dricus is going to do that. It might sound super simple, but isn't it always? Isn't the big brain take, if the grappler can get his grappling going, he wins. If the striker can get his striking going, he wins. It's always that shit. Dricus du Plessis is the pick. And that's it. I think I'll do a little recap. We'll throw in the round and method of victory. Why not? Stewart Nicoll versus Jesus Aguilar. I'm going to say after a spooky, I'm getting the fucking vision right now. After a spooky sequence where Stewart Nicoll fights out of a desperate guillotine thrown up by Jesus Aguilar. Eventually, he gets to the back and finds a rear naked choke finish. Maybe in round one. Maybe in round one. Round one submission for Stewart Nicoll. Kenan versus Ricky Glenn. I think this fight is going to end in KO TKO for Kenan, but I'm also going to say round one. These fights are independent of each other, of course, so I'm going to also say round one finish for Kenan. That might be crazy. I always have to remind people I'm bloodthirsty. When I'm giving the picks, the round and method of victory picks, I'm bloodthirsty. I always think there's going to be a shit ton of finishes. I bug out. There's the disclaimer on that. Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. Again, would I be a tweaker to say round one KO TKO for Tom Nolan? I would be. And I am going to say it. Round 1 TKO for Tom Nolan. Or KO, obviously. Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. I'll say round 2. KO TKO. Herbert's able to survive round 1. Maybe it's a little spooky for him. Maybe it's a lot more uneventful than people thought it would be. And then Herbert Burns kind of gasses out, fades, and Jack Jenkins puts him away. Maybe even drops him with a leg kick. And that is the start of the finishing sequence. Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. Whew. Again. I'm going to say Luana Santos, round 2 submission. Calm little armbar. Not the exact same way as Ariana Lipski, but maybe something very similar. Moving on. Ricardo Ramos versus Joshua Culibao. You know, I think if this fight actually goes the distance, it's probably going to be spooky for Ricardo. So I will say Ricardo gets a finish. Fuck it. Spinning back elbow finish in round 2. He gets Joshua Culibao up against the cage right where he likes to throw it, and he actually does land one. It leads to a finish. Good for Ricardo Ramos. He's back in everyone's good graces again. Moving on. Junior Tafa versus Valter Walker. I have to go with Valter Walker by decision, if I really believe that pick. Oh, God. Carlos Prates versus Jingliang. I do think Carlos Prates picks up another finish here in round 2 or round 3. Round 2 or round 3, KO TKO for Carlos Prates. Very calmly. Very calmly. Jesus Christ. I'm bugging out. I know I'm bugging out. Oh, God. Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. You know what? I'll say Jairzinho Rozenstruik by decision. That might sound like a clownish thing, but I could see neither dude maybe pressing the action enough to get that finish, but Jairzinho's just always ahead, using the jab. Just outstriking Ty. Moving on, Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. I'm going with Mateusz Gamrot by decision. I think that speaks for itself. The co-main event, Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg. I'll also go with Steve Erceg by decision. I think he just wins this fight. I don't know if he maybe finishes Kai Kara-France. Maybe he does finish him. Maybe he submits him. Maybe he catches him with a hook, similar to how he did Matt Schnell when they get in close. But I do think he wins that by decision. Dreykus. I know I was saying Dreykus wins by submission. Does Dreykus win by submission? Yeah, I think Dreykus wins by submission. I don't know why I'm going to say round 4, but I'm just going to say round 4. Round 4 just pops into my head. That's just a nebulous fucking pick. Nebulous rounded method of victory pick. But that's pretty much it. Super hyped for these fights. Super fucking hyped. Like I said, it's spooky hours. I think all these fights are going to be good. I think there are going to be a lot of finishes. If not, their fights will be at least decent. Every fight is decent enough. I think almost every fight on this card can at least be in the main event of the main card of a fight night. At least. So should be a good night of fights. Hopefully we do well on the picks. Feeling fairly confident, you know. I've felt fairly confident in the past and done absolutely shit. I've felt extremely uncomfortable with picks and actually done well. So it really We just have to watch. That's all we can do is wait and see and watch the cope. If everyone comes out, if all of the grapplers that I was talking about, like if these people can grapple, they'll win. If the majority of them come out just striking, something might be up. Something might be afoot. Strange things might be afoot in the UFC. Strange things might be afoot. Yes. Again, the first ever Smoky Hours Fight Companion went off last weekend. We wish that you were there. It was a fantastic time. We were chiefing big gas, smoking on people's packs, talking shit, getting hyped. Even though the card wasn't sensational, it was decent. It ended up being decent. I thought it was going to end up being decent. We will obviously do big Smoky Hours Fight Companion this week. About 15 minutes, approximately 15 minutes before the event starts, before the first fight, I'm going to hop in. Please come. Please come. Say what's up. Chill with your boy. Smoke some with your boy. We'll talk fights. Alternative commentary. I'll offer my alternative commentary on the fight so you can see me cope and seethe and scream and rage in real time. Like the video if you like it. Dislike the video if you dislike it. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more. And as always, much love. Big kiss. Back shots, back shots, back shots. Whoa, rare ending, rare ending, rare ending. Back shots. I'm giving you back shots. Rare ending.